I grew up in a small village in western Kenya where everyone knew each other. It was a close-knit place where we all respected the ways of our ancestors and, more than anything, feared the unknown. But there was one person we feared most, Nyar-Obongo. She was an old woman with a face like dry, cracked earth and eyes that never seemed to blink. People said she had been old even when my father was a child. They said she lived alone because anyone who got close to her either got sick or just disappeared. Kids whispered stories about her under the cover of night. They said she was a jajuok, a witch, a woman who could curse you just by looking at you wrong. Even the elders didn't dare talk to her. She would sit outside her hut at dusk, muttering strange words, picking at bones no one saw her eat. One evening, my older cousin Otieno dared me to pass by her hut. It was just a joke to him, but I was terrified. Still, I didn't want to look like a coward, so I agreed. We crept down the path, the night air heavy with the smell of wet earth. Otieno stayed back a few steps, laughing in whispers as I edged closer to her hut. Suddenly, I heard a sharp snap behind me. I turned, but Otieno wasn't there anymore, just gone, as if he had melted into the darkness. My heart was pounding, but I tried to convince myself it was a trick. I called out his name, but there was only silence. Just then, I felt something brush past my leg, a cold touch, like a spider's web, but heavier, sticky. And that's when I saw her. Nyar-Obongo was standing in the doorway of her hut, staring right at me. Her eyes were wide, almost too wide, glinting in the faint moonlight. Her mouth curled into a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was as if her face wasn't meant to smile. "What are you doing here, boy?" Her voice was a rasp, barely more than a whisper, but it filled the air like thunder. I I was just, I stammered, feeling my legs freeze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She took a step forward, her bones creaking with each step, and I could feel an invisible weight pressing down on me. She reached out a hand, her fingers bony and twisted like tree roots, and touched my forehead. "Go home," she said, "and tell your mother to prepare for a visitor." I ran all the way back, my skin cold with fear. When I told my mother what had happened, she went pale and told me to keep quiet. That night, she lit a small fire outside our house and kept it burning until dawn, muttering prayers under her breath. I barely slept. The next morning, Otieno was still missing. My family and I searched for him, but it was as if he had vanished into thin air. Days turned into weeks, and still he was nowhere to be found. People started whispering that he had been taken by her. My uncle, Otieno's father, went to confront Nyar-Obongo, but he returned only hours later, silent, his face drawn and pale. He never told us what she had said. A month after Otieno disappeared, my mother fell ill. She would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, as if in a trance. Sometimes she would mutter things in her sleep, words I didn't understand. She got thinner and weaker by the day. When I tried to get the local medicine man to come, he refused, saying there was nothing he could do. The day my mother passed, I saw her. Nyar-Obongo was standing outside our home, watching from the edge of the village. Her eyes met mine, and she smiled that same strange smile. I felt the weight of her gaze like a curse wrapping around me, cold and unbreakable. I left the village soon after. I couldn't stay there, couldn't bear the memory of my mother, my cousin, or the feeling of her eyes on me. But sometimes, in my dreams, I still see her face, the wide, unblinking eyes, the twisted smile. And I know that no matter how far I run, she'll be waiting,